Right. Like I said, my name's Jake, and we're kicking off a new series called Battle Born. On October 26th in 1864, James W. Nye was the governor of the territory of Nevada, and he began to send a telegram to President Abraham Lincoln. The message was transmitted in Morse code, and it contained the entire text of the Nevada State Constitution. Sending such a long telegram at the height of the Civil War was a challenge, and so there was no direct link from Carson City to Washington, D.C., and so the telegrapher, James H. Guild, worked 7 hours to transmit the message to Salt Lake City, where it was then from Salt Lake City sent to Chicago, and then from Chicago to Philadelphia, and then from Philadelphia finally to the War Department's telegraph office in Washington, D.C. 2 days later. It was 175 pages when it was all transcribed. The final word count was 16,453 words, and at that time, it cost $4,313.27, or in today's dollar, it cost nearly $60,000 to send that transmission. At the time, it was the longest and most expensive telegram ever sent. Wow. On October 31st, so just a few days later, in 1864, the Civil War was winding down. President Lincoln was at the end of a tough re-election campaign, and a new state was born, the great state of Nevada. Now, because of the timing and the circumstance, Nevada took on the nickname Battle Born, and it has stuck with us. It's actually on our state flag, even though it's not our state motto. It has defined this state and its residents in many ways. It's become an ethos, a part of our character, and a part of our strength. So just a few months ago, when we suffered the worst mass shooting in United States history, we rose up because Nevada is battle born. I love that theme. Now, I'm a native Nevadan, so it's kind of in my blood. And at the same time, I'm a Christian. And so it's in my spirit. Some Christians might refer to themselves as born again, because they've been born into new life through Jesus Christ. But really, we are battle born again, because Jesus defeated death and sin. Because he won the battle, we are born into the overcoming, victorious kingdom of God. But it's not just one time that you are battle born. You and I face multiple battles throughout life. No one, now you can go and as you face that battle, you could be defeated or you can overcome. And when you overcome, you don't come out on the other side the same. I'm not the same as I was 10 years ago. You're not the same either. I've been born through some battles, and each time you and I overcame, we were battle born. And today we mark a new day in the histories of Epic Church and Sought Church, where we are creating a new family of churches. It's new, it's exciting, and it will be a battle, but Jesus will build his church, and this Las Vegas Valley will be changed. Imagine what we will be in 2019, because we are a family of churches that has been battle born. We're all facing a battle right now. Certainly as a church, definitely as individuals, we're all facing a battle in 2018. Maybe you struggle with addiction to drugs, alcohol, tobacco, pornography, spending, sex, eating. You've tried for years to quit. You confessed to God and you asked for forgiveness. You promised God that it would never happen again. Yet just a few short days or a few short hours later, temptation struck again. The vow you made to change was forgotten as you gave into your desire. And you've struggled with it for so long, you aren't willing to talk about it with others. It's off limits with your spouse. You kind of get defensive at even the hint of it. It becomes the biggest obstacle in your life. It's huge. It's a giant. Maybe you suffered a major hurt. Somebody treated you wrong. It should have never happened, but it did. Now, years later, you struggle with feelings of anger, resentment, unforgiveness, low self-esteem, bitterness, and your relationships have suffered. Your sleep has suffered. You've paid a huge price. And the battle seems like it will never be over. Your past hurt is a huge, giant obstacle between you and your future. Still, some of us face a natural enemy. There's an individual in your life determined to destroy you, and you've tried to handle it as a Christian, you've tried to work it out, but their lies, their threats, their accusations have worn you down, and this person has become a giant obstacle in your life. In some way, somehow, you have to find a way to overcome, but there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. Some of you are facing a financial giant. It doesn't look like there's a way out. You've tried everything that you can think of, and nothing works. And this looks like the giant that is going to defeat you. Maybe you're dealing with the giant of grief. You've lost someone you love. And you're living in a dark cloud of grief and despair. You aren't sure you can even function. You thought you would get past it, but you haven't. And it's just there every day. Maybe you've suffered from an illness or a disease for many years. It's become part of your life. It seems like this pain, this challenge, this sickness will be with you forever. And somehow you just have to find a way to cope with it. Maybe some of us just received the news. There's a brand new challenge in your life, a huge giant. Now, there is absolutely no way that I could go through and list every giant. I mean, self-esteem, greed, gluttony, lust, food addictions, bitterness, anger, resentment. I mean, you could go on and on with a list of giants in our lives. I may not have identified your specific issue, but we all struggle. We all face temptation, we all face challenge, and most of us can identify the major obstacle that we would like to overcome. The huge giant, the huge hurdle that stands between you and your God-ordained future. What is the big thing in your life that is holding you back? What is the one thing, the one obstacle, or that one sin that if you could overcome it, you would be propelled forward? And I'm asking myself that question. I'm asking that question of our family of churches. If you could pick one area of your life to overcome a weakness, a habit, or a tendency, what would it be? What's the huge obstacle in your path? Today we're going to start looking at one of the most infamous stories in the Bible. And even if this is your first time in church, you've probably heard this story before. It's often used as a sports analogy and a theme in storytelling. It's the story of David and Goliath. The most famous battle in the Old Testament was not between two armies, it was between two people. And in this epic story, David faced the obstacle between his sheep-herding present and his nation-leading future. If David won the battle, then he would be propelled forward into his destiny. And so we're going to take a long, close look at this story. Because you and I have got to find a way to defeat the biggest enemy in our lives. That giant has to come down. The unforgiveness, the addiction, the hurt, that challenge cannot defeat you. You can't let it. You have to be battle-born. You will never reach your full kingdom potential until you overcome your huge, giant obstacle. And so Emily had you guys fill out this card earlier. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to fill in the blank. My giant. And what is it? Write it down. Don't be afraid. Put it on paper. identify that thing that's in your life. Now, I'm going to be completely upfront with you. I absolutely have an agenda in this series. At some point in the next 6 weeks, I want you to decide that you are ready to fight. And then I want you to overcome and confront the biggest challenge in your life. I want you to be battle-born. And whether you're confident right now or you're scared to death, I want to equip you with the information, the environment, the people, the God that will help you overcome the challenge that you face. With God's help, you will take on the biggest issue in your life. And I want to see you have victory over your worst struggle, your worst sin. As we begin this series, I want to challenge you to do two things. First, read this story, David and Goliath. It's about 54 verses. Read it at least once a week for the next 6 weeks. We're going to start it today. It's in 1 Samuel 17. I want you to read it once a week for the next 6 weeks, whether that's on lunch break or, you push back your Netflix episodes for a little bit and then do it at night. Maybe you do it first thing in the morning. Whenever it works in your schedule, whatever you have to do, I want you to read this story beginning to end once a week for the next 6 weeks, because I want you to discover the truths and principles for fighting your giant. The second thing that I want to ask you to do throughout the next 6 weeks is I want you to not miss a single time where we gather together. Now, if you have to be out of town, I get that. Sometimes work takes you out of town. Maybe you got a trip already planned. What I want you to do is I want you to watch online. We'll be posting these online, and you can catch up on YouTube. But if you can be here, be here. You'll have multiple opportunities now, one on Sunday morning and Sunday night, so that we can take this journey together. Now, let me start with the setting. So if you have a Bible, turn to 1 Samuel chapter 17. And we're going to also have the verses on the screen for you. If you don't have a Bible, one of the things that you could do is just pull out your phone, go to bible.com/app, and you can download a Bible app right to your phone. 1 Samuel 17 today. We're going to start in verse 1. This is the setting. The Philistines now mustered their army for battle and camped between Sakah in Judah and Azekah in Ephes Dammim. Now, I'm just making these names up. You just make them up when you read too. Saul countered by gathering his Israelite troops near the valley of Elah. And so the Philistines and Israelites faced each other on opposite hills with the valley between them. Now, David's not yet on the scene, but this is where it's going to happen. David's obstacle, his enemy, his giant, makes his first appearance right here in this valley. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet, and his bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. He also wore bronze leg armor, and he carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of his spear was as heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. His armor bearer walked ahead of him, carrying a shield. Goliath had a shield carrier who walked before him with this huge shield, designed to protect Goliath's body from arrows of the enemy. So in addition to all this massive, heavy armor, Goliath had this guy in front of him carrying a man-sized shield as double protection. Goliath had all of the things to impress and to intimidate. But if you had been there on that day, let's say you were there, and let's say you were 11 feet tall, you wouldn't have been intimidated by Goliath. But because to an 11-foot man, a 9-foot man is a wimp. Yeah. It's all a matter of perspective, right? I mean, what is the giant in your life? It's anything bigger than you. To most of you, I don't seem like a giant. In fact, I'm not afraid to say it, I'm a little short. But to a 3-year-old, I'm a giant. It's just a matter of perspective. When you were 2 years old, potty training seemed like an unconquerable giant. I think most of us have that under control now. When you were a teenager, understanding girls seemed like an impossible challenge. Some giants last longer than others. Giants are about perspective. What seems like a giant now may not seem like one later.
Right.
You know, and it ticks you off because you're trying to quit smoking, and your friends say, well, it's easy, just stop. I just stopped smoking. You know, you're trying to lose weight, and your wife says to you, well, why don't you just quit eating so much? Not helping. In fact, you don't like that response at all. You're trying to overcome fear, and your sister says, well, get over it. That's not scary at all. You're trying to get past grief, and well-meaning people say, well, just move on because time heals all wounds. It's not fun when people act like the biggest challenge in your life is no big deal. And they do that because other people's giants never seem as big. I'm sorry, but your problem just doesn't seem that big to me. Doesn't look like a giant from here. Now, my problem, on the other hand, well, that seems pretty huge. That's human nature. My issue, my thing, my hang-up is a giant. Your problem's just little. Giants are a matter of perspective. Sometimes you get embarrassed by the giants that you have in your own life. You might think other people will laugh if they know your struggle. You're afraid that you'll seem small or weak. Come on. Everybody has a giant to face. Verse 8, Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. Why are you all coming out to fight? He called. I am the Philistine champion, but you are only servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. Now this is an interesting part. The Israelites, they had enemies that used to recognize them as servants of God. But now the enemy recognized them as servants of Saul. One big man was enough to intimidate the entire nation of Israel. Why? Because Israel had forgotten the size and the strength of their God. They used to follow God, but now they followed a man. Giants seem bigger when you're not seeking God. When you aren't in tune with God, giants are harder to defeat. They seem even bigger. I mean, I can't imagine facing the major challenges of life without God's help. And many of you have been fighting the same battle for what seems like forever because you're not in a right relationship with God. And your giant seems unconquerable and huge. It's bigger than you because it is. By yourself, you don't have a chance. Your challenge is way bigger than you, but your challenge is not bigger than God. Giants just seem bigger when you aren't following God. And so every day, Goliath yelled, choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me. Now, Goliath is suggesting a pretty common tactic of the day. It was a representative battle. And so a one-on-one fight. Goliath would represent the Philistine army, and whoever Israel chose would represent the Israelite army. Whoever won, his army won. Whoever lost, his entire army lost. It was an efficient way to fight and have a battle, but still preserve all of your soldiers. And so Goliath said, hey, give me a man. But nobody wanted to be that man. Verse 11, when Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. I mean, I understand. I get that. This is a huge man with a huge spear. And the thought of taking on Goliath is intimidating. No one volunteered to fight Goliath because they're afraid. Facing giants is intimidating. I mean, when I asked you to identify the one thing, my giant, what's the one thing holding you back from your potential? Your initial reaction was probably some sort of intimidation. In fact, you may not have even written it down. What you wrote down was the second thing on your list. Not the biggest thing on your list, because the biggest thing seemed too much. It's intimidating to think about losing 40 pounds. It's intimidating to say, I need to overcome some addictive habits. It's intimidating to take on the giant of lust. It's intimidating to face down your biggest enemy. Your thought was, there's no way. I'm not even going to try. There's just no way. Facing giants is intimidating. I'm asking you to do this. Face it anyway. When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. Saul was terrified. And as a result, Saul's followers were also terrified, because that's how fear works. Fear is contagious. If you hang around people who fear giants, you will also fear giants. And instead, you need to spend some time with some battle-born people. If you want to defeat your giant, find other people who have defeated that giant and hang out with them. Get close to them. Don't hang around with fearful losers who are afraid of the same giant. Hang around with winners. Amen. If you want to defeat the giant of alcoholism, don't hang around other alcoholics. Spend some time with people who've defeated that giant. If you're trying to lose weight, don't spend all of your time with people that have the same challenge. Find someone who lost 80 pounds and spend some time with them. If you're trying to get through grief, find someone who's found peace and strength in the face of loss. If you're trying to beat depression, then don't spend all of your time with depressed people. Get around some happy people. If you're trying to defeat pornography, find someone who's defeated that giant. You have to spend time with battle-born people. This is the beauty and strength of a church. Because a church is filled with messed up people who've overcome. And that's why I'm so excited about this family of churches that we're creating with Salt Church and Epic Church, because there are more stories of defeating giants in our midst. There are more people to connect with, and there are more places to connect with them. Verse 16 says, for 40 days, every morning and evening, the Philistine champion strutted in front of the Israelite army. Goliath didn't issue his challenge one time and then leave. No. Every morning and every evening for over a month, Goliath marched out, flaunting his size and his strength, daring someone to take him on. I'm sure the Israelites thought, well, maybe Goliath will get bored. You know? Maybe he'll head to another battlefield. Maybe the Philistines will need him somewhere else. Every morning, there he was. It's so much like the giants we encounter in our own lives. They don't just come once. They come morning and evening, day after day, relentlessly trying to intimidate. They come in the form of a person, a pressure, a worry. Few things are more persistent and intimidating than fear and worry. You try to ignore your giant. You try to pretend that it isn't there, but every day it's there. And I've got some tough news for you. You won't magically wake up one day and discover your giant is gone. Giants don't leave on their own. They must be defeated. To defeat your giant, you're going to have to be battle-born. Might be tough. Fight anyway. It might be ugly. Fight anyway. Fight. Don't wait for the giant to leave. Fight now. Fight today, right now. If defeating your giant matters, then start right now. But Jake, you told me the series is going to be 6 weeks long. I haven't heard the whole series yet. I'll just wait until you're done. No, don't do it. Get going right now. You start fighting right now, and I'll make sure we get through this thing as fast as we can get through this thing. Why? Because the giant is not going to go away on its own. Don't give it 6 more weeks. It matters. Your giant is standing between you and your God-given kingdom potential. So fight. Fight right now. Start today. Let's go. It's time to fight. You may have given up. And you just decided this is just your giant to live with. Your cross to bear. I've got another thought for you. One that I happen to like a whole lot better. Why not defeat that giant? Why not receive your miracle today? Why not receive your deliverance today? But Jake, I've been fighting that giant for years. I want you to remember one thing. This might be your day. Today can be your day. God knows where you are. God knows the battle you are in. You're not on your own in the fight. God is on your side. But what if I pray and nothing happens? Keep praying. When you get up in the morning and you look out your window, you say, this might be my day. In a moment, in an instant, everything can change. You have to fight. You have to be battle-born. Today can be your day. Giants don't leave on their own. They must be defeated. Satan isn't going to decide it's just time to move on. It's time to take on the giant. It's time to fight. The good news, you're not on your own. God is on your side. I'm on your side. And we're going to do this together over the next 6 weeks. And so I want you to commit to the process. I'm making that commitment with you. God, I pray for us right now. I feel so pumped up. I just want to, I'll take on every giant I can right now, God. And in this moment of courage, God, I pray that we would place our courage and our hope in you. Giants are a matter of perspective, and nothing is giant to you. Wherever we find ourselves, the battle that we face right now, God, I pray you help us to stand up, to fight, to be